Hey, getting back to our story series, we have two characters left. There's a bunch of other ones, but these two are the standouts of the whole bunch. I mean, I probably know 12, 15 woodsmen that come up through the ages in the ranks, but they're just woodsmen. They weren't exceptional woodsmen. They were just hunters, campers, fishermen that really just put everything in their car and went. So the next guy up is a guy by the name of Mitch Ryder. Not the devil with the blue dress guy. The other Mitch Ryder. Guy I knew. How I met Mitch is I was involved with a youth group back in the early or late 70s called the Royal Rangers. They were part of the Pentecostal church here in our little town. And got in some trouble. Had to do some community work. They said that'd be fine. So, okay. So anyway, so I was in this, then the Royal Rangers, I didn't know what to expect, but they turned out to be a bunch of like mountain men. They taught the kids a lot of woodsmanship skills, how to live like 1800 mountain men, frontiersmen. It was an interesting group. I enjoyed it. So, they said they're going on a camporee. All right. You want to come? Sure, I'll go. Whole weekend. We go up to the Endless Mountains. It's about, I don't know, maybe a 50-mile trip. Right along the Susquehanna River. Oh my God, was this place beautiful. It was pavilions and lodges and shelters, and you could walk right down on the Susquehanna. Susquehanna in my area is probably the biggest river around here. Some areas might be about 3/4 of a mile across, but definitely a half mile in most areas. So I'm sitting here, they didn't tell me to bring a fishing rod, and I'm sitting here looking at this river that, Well, they wouldn't let me camp on the shoreline. They wouldn't let me camp here. They wouldn't let me camp there. I told them, I said, you guys didn't tell me what to bring with me. I brought a K-bar knife and my backpack that I usually take camping. I had my sleeping bag and whatnot. They're like, oh, yeah, oh. So I said to them, well, the best I can help you with is I can use my poncho and build a shelter and blah, 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 blah. So this gentleman named Mitch, he was in a baker's tent way up the top of the hill. He's noticing what's going on down below, and he's like, hey. I said, what? He said, you need a place to stay for the night? I said, well, they kind of set me back here unprepared. I said, well, I'm prepared, but they don't like the way I am. So he's like, well, let me talk to Frank, blah, blah, blah. So I wound up spending the night, Friday night and Saturday night with Mitch. So Mitch had this big wall baker tent. A homemade bed in it. His own forged tomahawk, own forged knives, a flintlock and a 50 caliber or 58 caliber flintlock, and a fowler. All this stuff was packed in this baker's tent. So for 2 nights I was just drooling all over the place. Over the course of the weekend, they had tomahawk throwing competitions and knife throwing competitions and bows and arrows and shooting competitions. It was a blast. I think I came in 2nd place on the tomahawk throw, 3rd place on the knife throw, and I tied for 1st place on the muzzle loader shoot. So me and the other guy got to split the prizes. One of the prizes was a knife, one was a tomahawk. So he took the hawk, I took the knife. And so Mitch said to me, anytime you want to go out, he said, I go out regularly almost every weekend, sometimes for a week, sometimes for 2 weeks. So, but anytime you want to go out, you give me a call. I was like, well, I don't know where you live. He said, I live in East Mountain in Scranton. Whoa, that's 10 miles, 13 miles from my house. I said, okay. So I called him up one weekend. Now, in Mitch's backyard, when you walk out of his back door, there's a trail. One part of the trail goes up over the mountain towards Lake Scranton, and there's probably 1,000 acres, maybe more up there that you can just roam around on. You won't see anybody. If you go to the left or the right-hand side of the trail, it takes you down the Montage Mountain, the Suskin Mountain, to the next mountain range, which is, we're talking 30 miles by, at that time, 30 miles by maybe 15 miles of nothingness, just open terrain. So I said, okay. I said, let's go do something. I figured a weekend. He said, me, I'll pack for a week. All right. So I gathered up my stuff, and at the time it was all military stuff. I had no traditional living skills type equipment. But I thought about it, and I was going to pack my 10-22, and I was like, nah, I better take the 12 gauge. We're getting into some wild country here. So I packed up the 12 gauge and enough, bullets and everything, shells and everything for a couple of weeks. And we went off. I got to his house, his wife was there, kissed him goodbye, and we were off. We were out. The first 4 days was basically him kind of getting me initiated to living his way. Because my way relied on gear. And he didn't like that. He always told me, if you can't rely on yourself, don't rely on what you're carrying, because that's going to fail you. You won't fail yourself. So we went through all this, and he was, teaching me the betterments of the flintlock and the fowlers that he had, and the tomahawks, the knives, how to use this, put that, what to carry. And he had a small backpack compared to mine. I had an Alice pack. He had this little, like a Desmuck type pack that he described, and a couple of haversacks. Well, a shooting bag and a haversack. But the food he carried, compared to like my MREs and my canned goods and stuff, it was like dried peas. He made 6 or 7 meals of just on dried peas and stuff he picked up along the way, and stuff we caught and got. And it was amazing to see how light this guy could go for 2 weeks. All of his cooking was done in this little kettle. Maybe a 1-quart pot if you want to, just for reference. All my cooking was done in my 2 canteen cups, which he didn't mind. He said, that's cool. And, his water was kept in a leather canteen on the side of Costrell is what he called it. But it was a leather canteen, waxed inside so it wouldn't leak. It was something to see. For me to be out there with, this guy was the mountain man. He knew his trees, he knew his grasses, he knew his animals, he knew his equipment so well. He could probably go through that entire equipment bag, load his muzzle loader up, do whatever he needed to in the pitch black of night. It's the first time I ever tried on a pair of moccasins, which I didn't like because you could feel every little rock and whatever. And he said to me, well, you're a tenderfoot. You got to break your feet into it. It's like, I haven't been called a tenderfoot in years. I was getting kind of, so, well, you're wearing them combat boots. I said, yeah. I said, well, your feet's going to get tough, but you're still going to be a tenderfoot in our language. So, man, he was something. He was a very kind, gentle man, but he spoke to a point that you understood what he meant. He didn't have to say it twice. So we went through these 2 weeks of me learning different traps and fish traps, and the fish traps he always he'd use stones or he'd use trees, and it's like, this guy's nuts. We'd wake up in the morning, there'd be fishing. Crayfish traps, he used to use sticks, and he'd make a funnel like you see of a fish trap with a rock wall behind it. And he'd go downstream and walk up the stream for about a half a mile, and all the crayfish that he scared in front of him would all funnel into this place. We ate crayfish. That's the first time I ever tried freshwater mussels out of a stream. I never even knew they lived in streams. He showed me how to, you look at a stream and you can see the line going across the bottom. Looks like a worm line. That's a mussel crawling across the bottom of the stream. Follow that line, and at the end of the line, there's a freshwater mussel. And frogs, we ate frog, we ate everything that moved. And this guy knew it. I mean, in and out. So 2 weeks later, we come back home, and to be honest with you, from not having a continuous diet of that kind of food, we kind of got, oh, I did, he didn't, he's used to eating like that. I kind of got the runs, whatever you want to call them. We walked over, we were going through the woods, and he said, you still, yeah. I said, come here, eat this. Gave me some kind of plant, plugged me right up. I was like, wow, this guy was impressive. We had made plans on making a hunting trip. He was going to let me borrow one of his fowlers, and the fowler is a smoothbore flintlock. And he was going to let me use one of them. He was going to use this 58 because he said that could still be loaded up with shot and used. So we had plans on making a few hunting trips and quite a few more camping trips after that. We got 3 or 4 camping trips into it. My kit started to evolve around him. I found a canvas backpack. I was basically loading it like he was explaining to me, but I didn't have the money to buy, the tin kettles and stuff. But, a regular 1-quart pot was fine by him. Kind of like the Canterbury 21st century long hunter thing. He was the long hunter. I was a 21st century guy, and he's like, okay, well, you need a quart pot. You can do everything with a quart pot. Okay. So I got a quart pot for my mother. That's fine. You don't need to have this, because this takes special care and everything. You're just starting out. Very gentle, very nice man. So we made it through. That was the fall and winter of 78, I think it was. We made it through 2 trips in the summertime, and Mitch went out camping one day. He was gone for a week. Told his wife he's going to be gone for 2 days. They found him in a shelter. He took a massive heart attack. I guess you could say he died the way we all want to. So that was the end of our learning experience. But it left a lifelong impression, because now I camp as light as possible when I used to. And I really got into the living history end of it, and it's something to be living that way. To go camping the way people used to years ago, and enjoying nature more than enjoying gear. He did leave an impression. All these guys did. But this gentleman here, he died the way I think we all want to. Just calmly laid down in the woods and never woke up. Oddly enough, his wife had given me a small knife that was a fixture folder. And my mother's house got tore down and got taken away with the garbage because I couldn't get in to get stuff, so I lost that. But if you ever get a chance to, check into the Royal Rangers. It's, like I said, the ones that were here, I don't know if it's all over, but the ones I was associated with were typically mountain man type oriented wilderness living skills. Check it out. Mine was through a Pentecostal church. I wouldn't know, if that's the norm for the church or not. So check them out, though. Yeah, Mitch Ryder. I even asked him one time. I said, "You're not." No. He said, "I wouldn't." I said, "I was in Vietnam at the time." No, because Mitch was a Vietnam vet. That's how he got started with all this. Because when he come home, he just wanted to forget about it and just, walk the woods and forget life ever happened. at that particular time. Well, every now and then when I go past Lake Scranton, I have a certain fondness for just looking over the lake because that was his backyard. So that's the story of Mitch Ryder. Yeah, that was kind of an emotional thing, but hey, what can you do? Getting old. So, I hope you enjoyed this story. Got one more, I think, to go, possibly two. And then we got to get on to some reviews for black and white fire starters, Pennsylvania bushcraft to survival. So we got a lot of stuff. We got some reviews on some Tom Chitwood stuff, and got a lot of stuff to go through this summer. So we will catch you guys on the next story time.